Ever feel like the ground beneath you is constantly shifting?
Yeah.
Like the world is this massive puzzle with a few pieces missing. Yeah, you're not alone. Philosophers have been wrestling with these big existential questions for centuries.
Hmm.
And today we're taking you on a deep dive into how Western philosophy tackled these very ideas, guided by none other than Bertrand Russell and his History of Western Philosophy.
Russell. Yeah, Russell had this knack for connecting seemingly abstract ideas to the lives of the philosophers who dreamt them up.
Right.
It's fascinating how he reveals that these weren't just thoughts in a vacuum. They were responses to the world these thinkers lived in.
Exactly. We're not just memorizing names and dates here, right?
Right.
We're tracing the evolution of thought itself. So where better to start our journey than ancient Greece? But before we get to the big names like Socrates and Plato, we have to talk about the pre-Socratics.
Okay.
Who were these guys and why should we care about them?
Imagine a world where natural phenomena were explained through myths and legends.
Okay.
Now enter the pre-Socratics.
Okay.
These thinkers dared to ask, what if there's a natural explanation for everything? They were trying to crack the code of the universe, not through stories, but through observation and reason.
Okay, I can see why that was revolutionary. Instead of attributing thunder to Zeus being grumpy, they looked for underlying principles.
Exactly.
But some of their ideas seem a bit simplistic now, right?
Yeah.
Like Thales believing everything originated from water.
Sure, in retrospect, some theories might seem charmingly naive, but the key is their approach, the shift from mystical explanations to seeking natural laws. Take Democritus, for example. His idea of atoms, these indivisible particles constituting all matter, is remarkably aligned with modern atomic theory. It's like he caught a glimpse of the building blocks of reality.
That's incredible. So the pre-Socratics set the stage by emphasizing observation and logic.
Yeah.
But then with Socrates, there seems to be a crucial turning point. Why did the focus shift from the cosmos to ourselves?
Picture Athens, the hub of intellectual life, embroiled in political turmoil and war.
Okay.
This backdrop influenced Socrates to turn inwards, towards questions of ethics and what it means to live a good life amidst chaos. It was like he was saying, forget the universe for a second, let's figure out how we fit into all of this.
And he didn't just, theorize in isolation, did he?
No.
I remember something about him engaging in dialogues in the marketplace, challenging people's beliefs.
Absolutely. Socrates used the now famous Socratic method, asking incisive questions instead of providing answers.
Okay.
This forced people to confront their own assumptions and examine their values. Imagine being put on the spot in the middle of the marketplace.
Oh, yeah.
No wonder he ruffled some feathers.
That's such a powerful image. Taking philosophy out of the classroom and making it a public affair.
Yeah.
But sadly, his questioning ultimately led to his trial and execution.
Right.
It's like Athens couldn't handle the truth,
Yeah.
yet his ideas didn't die with him, right?
No.
His student, Plato, took the Socratic torch and ran with it.
And how? But to understand Plato, we have to remember his background.
Oh.
As an aristocrat, deeply disillusioned by Athenian democracy, especially after what happened to Socrates, he yearned for a better, more perfect world.
Right.
This is where his theory of forms comes in.
Okay, this is where I usually get lost.
Okay.
Help me out here. What are these forms exactly?
Imagine a perfect, unchanging blueprint for everything. The ideal chair, the ideal concept of justice, even the ideal cheeseburger.
Okay.
These blueprints, these forms, exist in a higher realm of pure thought, while the things we experience are mere shadows, imperfect copies.
So the cheeseburger I'm eating right now is just a pale imitation of the ultimate cheeseburger form.
Precisely.
Mind blown.
Plato believed that philosophers, by engaging in deep contemplation, could access this higher realm and gain true knowledge. And here's where it gets really interesting. He argued that these philosopher kings should be the ones governing society.
So much for Athenian democracy. But I can see how Plato, having witnessed corruption and instability, might favor a system led by those with access to timeless truths.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder, though, was he seeking refuge from the world's messiness or offering a blueprint for improvement?
That's the million-dollar question.
Yep.
But as we'll see, Plato's ideas, as revolutionary as they were, faced pushback from a rather unexpected source. His own student, Aristotle.
Oh, this is getting juicy.
Yeah.
Aristotle challenging his mentor. Now I really want to hear what happens next. Last time we left off with Plato advocating for philosopher kings and his student Aristotle waiting in the wings. You could say philosophical debate was a favorite Athenian pastime.
And their debate gets to the heart of a fundamental philosophical question.
Yeah.
Do we find truth through abstract thought, like Plato suggested,
Mm.
or through observation of the world around us?
Mm-hmm.
Aristotle championed the latter, and his approach has a lasting impact, shaping not only philosophy but science as well.
Hmm. It's interesting how their personal experiences might have shaped their worldviews.
Yeah.
Plato, disillusioned by Athenian politics, sought refuge in a perfect realm of forms. Aristotle, on the other hand, dove headfirst into studying the natural world. Maybe he found solace in its tangible reality.
Right.
But their philosophical playground was about to get a lot bigger than Athens, right?
Exactly. Imagine the upheaval when Alexander the Great marched onto the scene,
Oh, yeah.
conquering vast territories and ushering in the Hellenistic era. It was a period of immense change, with old certainties crumbling and people grappling with newfound uncertainty.
So how did philosophy respond to this shift from a world of city-states to a sprawling empire? It's not like you could just ignore the geopolitical elephant in the room.
Think about it. Alexander's conquests brought different cultures into contact, exposing people to new ideas and ways of life. This era of globalization, if you will, called for new philosophical frameworks to navigate the complexities of a rapidly changing world.
It's like those old answers weren't cutting it anymore.
Right.
People needed practical guidance on how to live a good life amidst uncertainty and upheaval.
Yeah.
Enter Stoicism and Epicureanism, right? These schools of thought weren't just intellectual exercises. They offered a roadmap for navigating life's challenges.
You could say that. Stoicism, often associated with a stiff upper lip and unwavering resilience, went far beyond mere emotional control. Remember that concept of logos we touched upon earlier?
Yeah.
For the Stoics, this divine reason wasn't just an abstract idea. It permeated everything, connecting us all in a grand cosmic web.
So it's less about suppressing emotions and more about understanding their place in the grand scheme of things.
Exactly.
Like, hey, life throws curveballs, but I'm part of something bigger, so I can handle it. I can see how that would be appealing in a world where empires rise and fall and fortunes change overnight.
Precisely. This sense of interconnectedness, of being part of a rational universe, provided a sense of stability amidst the chaos. No wonder Stoicism resonated with people from all walks of life, from emperors like Marcus Aurelius to everyday citizens facing hardship.
It's like a philosophical safety net for a world constantly on edge. But then we have Epicureanism, which often gets a bad rap as a philosophy of hedonism and indulgence. But that's a rather simplistic view, isn't it?
It is. Epicurus wasn't advocating for a life of reckless pleasure-seeking. In fact, he believed true happiness stemmed from tranquility, from achieving freedom from fear and anxiety. This meant cultivating friendships, living simply, and most importantly, confronting the fear of death.
Yeah, that's a fear that resonates throughout history.
Right.
Especially in an era marked by plagues, wars, and political instability.
Sure.
It's almost like Epicurus was saying, focus on what you can control. Your own mind, your relationships, the simple pleasures of life.
Sounds a lot like modern mindfulness, wouldn't you say? There are definitely parallels. Both emphasize finding inner peace amidst external turmoil. But while Stoicism and Epicureanism offered paths to navigate a turbulent world, another force was emerging,
Okay.
one that would reshape the intellectual landscape: Christianity.
Talk about a game changer. Here you have this new religion gaining momentum.
Yeah.
And it has to contend with centuries of established philosophical thought. It's like, how do you reconcile faith with reason? Were they even trying to do that at first?
That's the fascinating part. Early Christians didn't entirely reject classical philosophy.
Okay.
In fact, they borrowed and adapted certain concepts.
Okay.
The idea of logos, for instance, found new meaning in the Christian context as the divine word, the embodiment of God's reason and will.
So it's not a complete break from the past, but a reinterpretation. But it wasn't all smooth sailing, was it? I remember reading about some serious clashes between those who prioritized faith above all else and those who saw a place for reason within religious belief.
Absolutely. On one hand, you had figures like Tertullian, who famously declared, "I believe because it is absurd." For him, faith transcended the limits of human reason. On the other hand, you had towering intellects like St. Augustine, who wrestled with the relationship between faith and reason.
Augustine, now there's a figure who straddled multiple worlds.
Yeah.
He wasn't just a theologian, but a philosopher, a historian, even a bit of a politician. His City of God, written against the backdrop of Rome's sacking, feels incredibly relevant even today.
It's a testament to the enduring power of his ideas. In a world seemingly crumbling, Augustine offered a vision of two cities: the earthly city, driven by human desires and destined to fall, and the city of God, founded on divine grace and eternal.
It's a powerful message, especially in times of crisis. But it wasn't just Christian thinkers shaping this era. Remember our friend Aristotle?
Yeah.
Well, he makes a surprising comeback, thanks to the Arabs.
It's true. While Western Europe was grappling with its own upheavals, Islamic scholars were diligently preserving and translating Greek texts, including Aristotle's works. Centuries later, these texts made their way back to Europe, sparking a revival of classical learning.
So Aristotle, once a major figure in ancient Greece, gets rediscovered and sparks an intellectual revolution in the medieval period. Talk about a plot twist.
It just goes to show that the course of intellectual history is rarely linear.
Yeah.
Ideas have a way of resurfacing when we least expect it, often in transformed contexts.
Yeah.
And as we'll see, Aristotle's return had a profound impact on how thinkers like Thomas Aquinas sought to reconcile faith and reason in the centuries to come.
This is what I love about exploring philosophy.
Yeah.
It's full of unexpected twists and connections across time and cultures. It's like piecing together a giant puzzle with each era adding its own unique pieces to the grand tapestry of thought. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Where do we go from here? It's amazing how these philosophical threads keep weaving through history. We've gone from the pre-Socratics trying to unlock the universe's secrets to the rise of Christianity reshaping the intellectual landscape.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder, where do you even go after Augustine's City of God?
Well, you could say that a seed of intellectual curiosity, planted centuries earlier, was about to blossom. Remember how those lost Greek texts, diligently preserved by Islamic scholars, made their way back to Europe?
Yeah.
That sparked a wildfire of intellectual energy during the Renaissance.
Ah, the Renaissance. It's like medieval thought got a serious upgrade.
Yeah.
Art, science, philosophy, everything was bursting with new life. But it wasn't just a rehash of old ideas, was it? It feels like there was a new boldness in the air, a willingness to challenge established norms.
You're spot on. Thinkers, artists, and even political theorists started questioning long-held assumptions, fueled by a rediscovery of classical learning and a growing fascination with human potential.
Right.
This is where we meet a figure who embodies both the brilliance and the turbulence of the Renaissance, Niccolò Machiavelli.
Machiavelli, the author of The Prince, a book often seen as a guide for ruthless rulers.
Right.
Wasn't he the one who said it's better to be feared than loved?
He did say that, but to label him as simply cynical is to miss the nuance of his thinking. Remember, Machiavelli was writing in a time of immense political instability in Italy. He saw firsthand how rulers often resorted to deception and brutality to maintain power.
So he was more like a political scientist, observing the mechanics of power without necessarily endorsing them.
Precisely. The Prince can be read as a brutally honest assessment of how power operates in the real world, often at odds with ideals of morality. Some argue he was offering a pragmatic guide for rulers, a mirror for princes reflecting the harsh realities of their time.
It's almost like he's saying, if you're going to play the game of power, here are the rules, whether you like them or not. But while Machiavelli was dissecting the intricacies of politics, a different kind of revolution was underway. The scientific revolution.
And this one wasn't confined to political courts. It shook the very foundations of knowledge itself. Imagine a world where the Earth was considered the center of the universe, a view supported by both common sense and religious dogma.
Until Copernicus came along and said,
Hold my astrolabe.
exactly.
Copernicus's heliocentric model, placing the sun at the center of the solar system, wasn't just a new astronomical theory, it was a paradigm shift.
And
It didn't sit well with everyone.
cue the dramatic music and Galileo's showdown with the church.
Galileo's trial and condemnation by the Inquisition highlight how revolutionary these scientific ideas were and the resistance they faced from those in power. But despite the opposition, the scientific method observation, experimentation, rigorous testing started to take hold.
It's like the old ways of knowing, based on authority and tradition, were being challenged by a new emphasis on empirical evidence.
Right.
What impact did this have on philosophy? It's not like philosophers could just ignore this seismic shift in thinking.
They couldn't.
Yeah.
Thinkers like Francis Bacon championed this new way of knowing. He emphasized inductive reasoning, gathering data, drawing conclusions, constantly refining our understanding based on new evidence.
Okay.
This had a ripple effect on all areas of thought, including how we approach questions of ethics, politics, and even our own existence.
It's like the rules of the game had changed. But new rules mean new players.
Right.
Enter John Locke, a figure whose ideas might seem obvious now,
Yeah.
but were radical in his time.
Locke, writing in the wake of political upheaval in England, articulated ideas that would have a profound impact on the modern world. He argued that individuals possess inherent rights, life, liberty, and property, which governments cannot infringe upon.
Didn't he also talk about the social contract, the idea that government derives its legitimacy from the consent of the governed?
Absolutely. Locke believed that individuals voluntarily surrender certain rights in exchange for the protection of others, forming a government based on consent rather than divine right or brute force. These ideas, as you can imagine, had a huge influence on the American Revolution and the rise of democratic thought.
It's amazing how these philosophical ideas, born centuries ago, continue to shape our world today.
Yeah.
But our journey isn't over yet. We've still got to navigate the intellectual whirlwind of the 19th and 20th centuries.
And what a whirlwind it is. Get ready to grapple with thinkers like Hegel, Darwin, and Nietzsche, each of whom challenged the very foundations of knowledge, morality, and even our place in the universe.
Okay, Hegel, confession time. His philosophy always makes my brain do backflips. Dialectics, historical determinism. It's a lot to unpack.
Hegel is definitely not for the faint of heart.
Right.
But at the core of his thinking is the idea of history as a process of unfolding reason. Imagine a grand debate where each era, each set of ideas, clashes with its opposite, eventually leading to a new, more comprehensive understanding.
So it's like history is a giant, messy conversation with each generation adding its 2 cents.
Exactly. And while Hegel's system is incredibly complex, one key concept that resonates even today is the master-slave dialectic. It explores the power dynamics between those who control resources and those who are subjugated.
Okay, that makes sense. It's like those in power often take their dominance for granted, while those who are oppressed constantly question and challenge the status quo.
Yeah.
So Hegel gives us this framework for understanding how power struggles shape history and progress.
Precisely. And speaking of challenging established views, let's talk about Charles Darwin. His theory of evolution by natural selection didn't just revolutionize biology.
Yeah.
It sent shockwaves through every area of thought, including philosophy.
Before Darwin, the dominant view was that humans were created in God's image, separate from and superior to the rest of the natural world. Then Darwin comes along and says, not so fast. We're all part of this grand tree of life shaped by the forces of variation and selection over millions of years.
It was a radical shift in perspective. Suddenly, the idea of a fixed hierarchical order was replaced by a vision of constant change, adaptation, and interconnectedness. This had profound implications for how we understand our place in the universe and even the nature of morality.
It's like Darwin provided the missing link, literally, showing how we're part of this vast evolving web of life rather than above it.
Right.
And then there's Nietzsche, a figure who still manages to provoke and challenge us more than a century later.
Nietzsche is a force to be reckoned with. He famously declared that God is dead. But this wasn't simply a rejection of religion. It was a recognition that the traditional foundations of morality, based on religious dogma and absolute truths, were crumbling in the face of modernity.
So it's not that Nietzsche hated religion per se.
Right.
But he saw that our reliance on those old value systems was waning. What did he propose we do about it? Embrace nihilism and despair.
Not quite. While Nietzsche recognized the potential for nihilism in a world without God, he also saw it as an opportunity. He challenged us to create new values, to embrace our own will to power, and to live life on our own terms.
It's like he was saying, we've outgrown those old narratives, it's time to write our own. Wow, we've covered a lot of ground from ancient Greece to the dawn of the 20th century. It's almost overwhelming to think about how much thought and debate has gone into shaping the way we see the world.
It's a testament to the enduring power of ideas. And while we've only scratched the surface of Western philosophy, I hope this deep dive has given you a taste of its richness and complexity.
More than a taste. I feel like I've been on an intellectual roller coaster. If I had to sum up what I've learned, it's that philosophy isn't just about memorizing names and dates. It's about grappling with the big questions, the ones that have plagued humanity for centuries. And on that note, we'll wrap up our deep dive into Bertrand Russell's History of Western Philosophy.
It's been a pleasure exploring these ideas with you.
Until next time, keep those philosophical wheels turning.